Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they who indulge in it shall eat the fruit of it for death or life. That is the book of Proverbs, verse 21, chapter 18. And I thought about that verse today because of a certain individual that I had an encounter with last week. And I saw the individual again today, and it made me think about this verse. Anyway, that particular verse that I read came from the Amplified Bible. So, again, I had an encounter with an individual about a week ago, and I saw the same individual today, and it was on the job. And when I saw him today, that biblical verse popped into my head because he was doing the same thing that he did when I encountered him last week on a more personal tip. What was he doing? Well, he was talking shit. Excuse my French, but I think in my caption description of this video, I said that there would be some harsh language. But anyway, yeah, he was talking shit. First of all, let me backtrack. My encounter with this guy last week. I won't give you all the details of what went down, but the gist of it was this. I had a meeting in the office of a certain individual that I won't mention the name, but he was kind of a high ranking person in the corporate world. And yeah, I mean, he was a white guy, uh, important white guy in corporate America, and we were talking about business. And so this individual comes up, and this individual, he's a line employee, and he's a black man. This guy, he's right at 60 years old. And so he said something about me, about my physical appearance. And it was degrading, and he did it to try to get a rise out of the white guy, who, in fact, was the director of his department. And but it wasn't really received. I mean, the way he thought it would be. So, I made a comment to the guy, and he kind of frowned at me, scowled, and he moved on. So today, I encountered the same guy at his actual working post. He was doing the same thing. He was talking shit, criticizing and talking crap about another person who I'm acquainted with, who actually happens to be a black woman. And yeah, he was saying it to a couple of white people that were, at his post, dealing with him. And so that scripture came to mind, and here's why. This guy, his mouth is very rotted and dilapidated. I mean, he's missing a whole lot of teeth, and the teeth that he does have, they're rotten. And he's even self conscious about grinning. Like when he smiles, he folds his lip over his teeth so he won't expose the gaps and, see the missing teeth. People can't see the missing teeth. That's what he's trying to conceal. But I mean, they're there. I mean, both upper and lower parts of his mouth missing a lot of teeth, and the teeth that he does have is rotten. And what's really interestingly ironic about his situation is the smell of his breath. I mean, I kid you not, his breath has the stench of death, like something died in his mouth, literally. I mean, it's so ironic that, and I suspect that the shit talking that he does wasn't just an overnight thing that happened recently. I suspect he's been doing that for years. I mean, it's easy to see because he just miles off mechanically about certain people. And I gave you the hint of who he does it to and who he does it in front of. I gave you two hints, so I'll let you do the math about his mouthing off and who he does it to and who he does it in front of. But anyway, if you really think about that, the smell of death coming from his mouth, the decay, which is death in action, that's what decay is. It's something's dying. And the power of life and death is in the tongue. He's been using his tongue to virtually destroy himself, and it's happening. I mean, he has no clue that death literally is happening beginning with his mouth, where his tongue resides. Isn't that pretty amazing? And I noticed that. And it made me think about another fella um, that I worked with at a rival company a little over a decade ago. Same thing. This guy was always talking crap about certain people and always complaining about something. And this guy was in the same predicament as this guy that I just talked about. His mouth was literally rotting. Teeth fell out and just rotten, the stench of death. And this guy too is like just constantly running his mouth talking crap, destructive crap, trying to bring somebody down to build up their particular self-esteem, but unknowingly tearing down their real self. Isn't that amazing? You know what? If you have a habit of talking crap, criticizing, and just trying to lift yourself up at the expense of other people by downgrading with your tongue other people, you just take a look around you. Look at your circumstances. Look at your body. Look at how your body is. And, the condition of your body. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen all kind of physical characteristics that was indicative of bad health, and the common denominator was these people constantly talking crap. The power of life and death is in the tongue. And, maybe it won't manifest in the body all the time. Who knows? I mean, it manifests in circumstances, it manifests finances. I mean, it can manifest in a myriad of ways, or for some people, it manifests in more than one way. I mean, some people can be suffering financially and physically, all because they fail to truly grasp the principle about the power of life and death being in the tongue. Consider your very own speech. And most people, they talk like that because of their mentality. Their minds are constantly racing with aggressive, angry, hostile thoughts that they feel they have to express. But it's not truly necessary, because if you stop those thoughts from coming out of the gate by controlling your tongue, and yeah, right at this moment, most people can't control their minds, but they can control their tongue. They really can. And if you do that, it will force you to be in a position to become aware of your thoughts. And that's when you can take some real spiritual action and change your mind. Be transformed by the renewal of the mind. Think about that. The next time, if this is you and you have a tendency or an urge to just complain, just to release whatever hostility you got going on in your head, think about that first. Control your tongue. Don't let destruction and death come out of your mouth. Okay? Let your tongue be a wellspring of life. And I know it can be tough. I mean, I was in that boat before, but I was able to recognize and understand why I was in my brain venting. I was actually causing myself more suffering. I told myself I was venting, but what I was doing was increasing my own suffering. So think about that. Remember, when you speak, it's one or the other. You're either speaking on behalf of God, the spirit, or the enemy. You're either speaking on behalf of life or death. And remember, practical speech is a good thing. I mean, you don't have to be so nitpicky that you say something like to yourself, "Oh, I want to throw a party tonight. Should I invite so and so?" And well, no, that's practical thought. That's practical speech. I mean, that's useful as far as normal everyday life. But you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. The destructive speech that promotes death. Be careful with that. What you can do is, again, examine your body. I mean, examine your eating habits. You can examine your finances, your circumstances. I mean, you can tell, if you look close enough, you can tell how your everyday speech controls the outcropping of your life in the world of physical manifestation. Just look close enough. And sometimes, I know it gets difficult, but what you can do is get this book, The Power of Spiritology by Dario Thomas, and it can give you more in-depth information about transforming yourself internally. And you'd be surprised at the goodness that comes from your tongue, automatically, even as negativity flows automatically from a lot of other people's tongue. And that's another thing. Just like I observed that guy about a week ago and saw him again today and thought about that scripture, observe other people in their speech patterns and see whether their speech patterns are more along the lines of death or life. And then when you determine that, just look at their surroundings, look at their bodies and their circumstances, and you'll understand exactly why. Anyway, thank you for listening. Um, Subscribe to the Spiritology Television Network, and God bless.